Between the vast expanses of Siberia and the Gobi Desert lies Mongolia. With a population of close to 3.5 million people, it is one of the world's most sparsely inhabited countries. Here, livestock outnumber humans around 20 to 1. And traditional ways of life coexist with rapid modernization. In the early 1990s, Mongolia transitioned to a multi-party system and free market economic principles. 3 decades on, its GDP per capita has tripled, according to the World Bank. This progress is largely due to Mongolia's rich resources underground. Copper, gold, and coal are among the country's biggest exports. Now, many are looking to diversify the economy into more sustainable sectors. One future engine of growth? Cashmere. 40% of the world's cashmere came from Mongolia in 2021. But some believe the country is just starting to tap into the sector's potential, both to generate profit and preserve Mongolian heritage. Coming up, we explore the origins of cashmere, where it's produced, sold, and where the industry is headed. Discover how cashmere is made in Mongolia. Spring on the steppe. Mongolia's bitter winter snows have largely melted, but the strong seasonal winds and dust storms just as extreme. Survival here means layers. In April and May, these goats shed the fine underbelly wool that kept them warm through the cold. A wool you might know better as cashmere. Soft, lightweight and durable, cashmere is prized by designers around the world, and Mankai Jagal Saikan wants only the best. Born in Mongolia, she founded her namesake knitwear label in 2013.
It's all made in Mongolia, sourced in Mongolia. There's a lot of hand embroidery and handwork, and we're always pushing the boundaries in terms of design. And every collection we try to push and think, okay, what hasn't been done in cashmere?
Actress Olivia Munn and supermodels Hailey Bieber and Gigi Hadid are among Mankai's celebrity fans. But the designer says she's less interested in highlighting the people who wear her clothes than the ones who make them, including those at the very start of the supply chain, the nomadic herders who supply the cashmere fibers.
For me, every time I go to the countryside and meet with nomadic herder families and see the goats, it always gives me immense inspiration and reinforces why I do what I do.
With the cashmere sourcing season well underway, Mankai sets out to visit a supplier, making a 3-hour journey from Ulaanbaatar to the countryside.
I've come to check in on Dure. She has many goats, and she's one of the nomadic herders that we collaborate with.
Bayadurin Zondwerhu is the head of her household and has lived in this part of Mongolia for a decade, she says. Like generations of herders before her, she moves home each season, looking for land where her herd of 500 animals can graze, and a sheltered spot to put up her traditional Mongolian yurt, known as a ger.
In the summer, after waking up, herders milk their cows, sheep and goats and shear their wool. When it comes to winter, we focus on taking care of our livestock. In spring, we wake up as the sun rises. During the birthing season, we stay up throughout the night, also taking care of household tasks like cooking and preparing firewood.
After a meal of milk tea, dumplings, fried dough and cream, plus a few unexpected visitors, it's time to collect their next batch of cashmere. They find a goat with a thick undercoat, tie the animal's legs to keep it still, and gently comb out the loose cashmere fibres.
Goat cashmere is naturally warm, which is why we need to comb it during the warmer seasons. If we don't comb it, they will naturally shed it during summer.
The UN Development Programme estimates there are 300,000 herders in Mongolia, and the fleeting cashmere harvest makes up a quarter of their income for the entire year.
The cashmere prices have been quite good since 2010.
But a higher price comes with higher risks, especially during a harsh spring. That's according to one organisation promoting rural development in Mongolia.
Having these tremendously cold seasons for a long time adversely affects herders' finances. In this early spring, herders comb the cashmere of their well-fed big goats. However, by selling this cashmere, they can only afford to buy food for the rest of their herds. Moreover, these combed goats are at risk of dying from the cold and require care. Instead of adjusting to the environment and postponing the selling season, sellers are increasing its price.
In recent decades, as global demand for cashmere grew, so too did herds like this one. More goats put pressure on this land and helped cause parts of Mongolia's ecosystems to decline.
The knowledge and understanding of adapting livestock numbers according to the natural habitat and conditions are crucial for herders. Herders play a crucial role in our food production, as they're not only responsible for herding livestock, but also provide us with meat and meat products.
Mundchai also hopes to bring greater appreciation of this unique way of life by putting herders at the heart of her fashion label.
The human element of any process, I think, is going to become very valuable in the future. What's more human than living in nature with animals? You know, humans have been doing that for centuries. Part of that tradition, culture still exists in Mongolia, which I think is very special.
Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia's capital. Most of the country's raw cashmere passes through the city before making its way to factories around the world. Up to 90% of Mongolian cashmere leaves the country long before it becomes a sweater, according to the Asia Development Bank. Some of the rest ends up here. In a factory on the outskirts of Ulaanbaatar, Gobi Cashmere says it makes 2.3 million products a year. Its flagship cashmere store in the city centre is the largest of its kind in the world, the company says. And according to Executive Vice President Michelle Otgontuks, Gobi was also the first of its kind, producing cashmere products for the domestic market over 40 years ago.
Gobi was established in 1981. Back then it was a state-owned company, but it was privatized in 2007. And ever since this transition, we've been expanding tremendously in terms of factory capacity, sales volume, employee numbers, and lately globally as a brand itself.
The focus is on accessible quality. A 100% cashmere sweater like this one costs around $170. That's on par with some global mass-market retailers. Although a third of Gobi's sales now come from customers abroad, every scarf, coat and blanket is entirely made in Mongolia. For Michelle, that's what gives the company an edge.
from raw material to a final product, we have all the necessary steps within our company, so everything is in-house.
In the factory, that process starts here. Where workers sort the fine fibres from the coarser parts of the goat's underbelly fleece. Then, machinery cleans and refines the cashmere until only fluffy clouds remain. Other machines dye or blend the cashmere, web it into thin sheets, spin it into a yarn, and weave yarns into fabric. Soon, it's on to the finishing touches. All in all, the process involves around 1,500 people, Gobi says. But Mongolian cashmere manufacturers may need a much bigger workforce to compete at an international level, according to experts.
The industry is still a little bit trying to improve as far as the capacity. So one thing that, for example, we've done is help to increase the number of students who are studying engineering and technology for the fiber sector to place more technical specialists in the industry here in Mongolia.
Gobi is investing in improving their cashmere supply before it reaches the factory. And they say they're reducing costs elsewhere, for instance, by cutting out third-party distributors. Keeping more of the cashmere supply chain in Mongolia could help the sector grow from about 3% of GDP to 10%, the UN Development Programme estimates. That means more profit for the people who make cashmere. And for the consumers, a product they can trace from goat to coat. In a corner of West London, Ayuna Tserendorj is showcasing Mongolian cashmere to the world. She founded this studio over 2 decades ago.
I wanted to be not just a Mongolian living abroad, but I really wanted to have a connection to my country.
The designer wants her customers to connect with Mongolia too.
It's not just the material, cashmere, it's more first entry point for the world to experience amazing nomadic Mongolian culture.
Ayuna sources cashmere from herders across Mongolia. She returns to the steppe every year to visit some of these nomadic families, film photo shoots, and sometimes find new sources of inspiration.
Once I was traveling across the big valley, beautiful valley in Mongolia, and I saw the biggest, most beautiful, clear rainbow I've ever seen. I just thought maybe I should do a collection with the concept of rainbows.
The brand is stocked in department stores around the world. From Harrods in London to Lane Crawford in Hong Kong.
Our customer base is people who appreciate high quality, but also they like the story of how products are made, where it comes from.
This story also attracted the attention of British model, author and environmentalist Lily Cole. She collaborated with Ayuna to design the Nomad collection in 2022.
At that time, she'd done these very strong jumpers and designs that said Earth in large letters. And so I sort of just like posited it as an idea, like wouldn't it be interested if you were to do that, but instead of Earth, say Nomad, and sort of champion and call attention to the communities that are behind this product.
A color like this would be a natural color, half natural, half dye.
Mm-hmm.
So
Today, Ayuna is showing Lily some of her latest concept, the start of the design process. After that, she needs to sketch her designs, drape them on a mannequin, and work out the technical specifications.
From a designer's point of view, you are given only one type of material. In a way, it's challenging, but it's also interesting because you can start exploring the ways what can be created out of one medium.
As a canvas for experimentation, it's also expensive. 1 kilogram of Mongolian cashmere yarn costs Oyuna around $150, she says. That's because there's not much of it. By some estimates, it takes a year's worth of growth from 4 goats to make 1 sweater. And making sure that cashmere is produced responsibly comes at a premium. Oyuna works with the Sustainable Fibre Alliance, a non-profit which helps to protect the land, animals and people involved in the cashmere industry.
Sustainability is the concept that I think all the supply chain across the world is getting really concerned about because of not only the coupled effects of the climate change or global warming, but also because it affects indigenous people and local communities' identity, survival, resilience, as well as to the coping strategy in the face of such changes.
Oyuna shows that sustainability sells. Made in small batches, a sweater here can cost almost $1,000. That might be too expensive for many, but Lily thinks it encourages a way of shopping everyone can follow.
There is a kind of premium on sustainable products, and I think we can solve for that by buying less. My hope is that we will move back to a relationship with clothes and with fashion that's less disposable.
At the sketching table, Oyuna might just have an idea for that. In Mongolia's Khinti Mountains, east of the capital, Gunvald Sorsabaram has watched over a herd his entire life. Just like his grandfather, and his grandfather before him.
I have spent 30 winters here, and if we count my grandpa's time, it adds up to over 100 years. My ancestors have been living in this place for generations.
Over the years, how to herd these animals has stayed largely the same. But how to make a living off them is changing. Like herders across Mongolia, Gunvald makes money by collecting cashmere from goats. He owns a few hundred of them. But there's another animal that's more at home in this high-altitude terrain.
Yaks are resilient animals in cold weather. They are capable of enduring harsh winter conditions in the mountains. Also, the dried curd made from their milk is good, and the milk they provide is quite thick.
You can make clothes from yak wool too. Like goats, yaks shed the insulating layer under their shaggy coats when the weather gets warmer. But while the market for cashmere took off in past decades, yak wool was never as popular. That's because the fibres are a little coarser. They're also darker, so yak wool is difficult to dye. But a growing number of companies are betting that yak could be the next big thing. One of the largest is Bodyos. It began as a cashmere trading business more than 30 years ago, but pivoted to selling yak wool to stand out in an already crowded cashmere market. Now, in their factory in West Ulaanbaatar, Bodyos says it produces more than half the yak wool products in Mongolia. It makes tens of thousands of cashmere garments as well, and says a lot of the production process is the same. The textiles are washed by the same machines and sewn by the same craftspeople. But manager Ishbalgir Batolug wants to convince consumers that yak wool can be even better than cashmere.
Cashmere, the whole world knows. There are like 10,000 tons available only from Mongolia. Whereas yak, it's only 100 tons. It's like 200 times rarer than cashmere. In terms of softness, the cashmere and the yak down, they're very close. Unless you are an extremely sensitive person, a lot of the times you wouldn't feel the difference. The yak down is warmer, and at the same time it breathes better.
Right now, yak wool garments sell for less than cashmere at Bodios, but demand is growing, in Mongolia and abroad. Ishbalgir says Bodios now exports to countries in North America, Europe and Asia. And he believes the yak wool market will grow as consumers become more aware of the environmental challenges that can come with cashmere. Climate change and extreme weather are affecting Mongolia's rangelands, causing degradation. Add an estimated 27.5 million goats grazing on these ecosystems, and the problem gets worse.
If the grazing capacity declines, it is better to have yaks. They require less fodder compared to other livestock.
Ishbalgir agrees from personal experience. He was once a yak herder too.
I jokingly say I'm lost in the city and never found my way back to the countryside. First of all, yak is very rare. There are only like 600,000 yaks in Mongolia. And secondly, they graze in a higher altitude where most animals don't reach.
A higher price for yak wool could incentivize herders to breed more yaks and fewer goats, reducing pressure on the grasslands. And with less competition for grazing space, goats have more to eat. This can improve the quality of their cashmere and drive up profits for herders, according to the UN Development Programme.
Very much what is important is working on reducing the size of the herds overall, so there's less degradation of the land. And in the context of cashmere, that means improving the quality of the cashmere so that the herders can maintain a good livelihood, have a good income, while having less animals that they have to look after.
In years to come, the success of Mongolia's cashmere industry may depend on balance between preserving ancient ways of life and embracing modern technology, investing in sustainable practices, and knowing when to make less. These Mongolians are taking control of cashmere's production and its story to define the next era of how cashmere is made in Mongolia.